Um, cool. Well, let's just jump into it. I'll share my screen. I've got a deck
Oh, so
that
you're going to go ahead and share?
yeah, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine, Brian.
All right, great. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
All right, excellent. So, my title is kind of within the sales world, and so this presentation is pretty salesy. I'll try to make it less salesy. I'm not here to sell you guys anything, but have more of an educational kind of discussion. I'm going to keep it very discussion based, and I'd like to hear your guys' feedback on a lot of these topics to get your guys' input. So. Just jumping into this, what we'll do is we'll go through kind of an educational period, and then we'll talk about what Proficio does, how we do it, a little bit of who we are, and being focused and centered in Carlsbad, what that looks like for our global presence. But at any point, if you have any questions or you want me to shut up, just jump in. I've got 2 young kids at home, and so I've learned how to speak without breathing. Because if you take a breath, they're going to jump in and cut you off. But talking at the highest level of what Proficio does, headquartered in Carlsbad, is that we prevent breaches. And so, how many times have you guys heard in the news, so-and-so's been hacked, right? We've got, usernames, passwords that have been released. I think Facebook recently lost like 500 million username and passwords and client, data. There's always, it seems like every week at this point, we've become kind of desensitized to, oh, great, my email address and passwords are out there. My credit card numbers are out there. My, XYZ information is out there. And so, we've kind of become desensitized a little bit to that. And so what we do as a company is we help prevent that from happening. And I want to stop on this slide because I think there's actually a lot to chew on here. We call those breaches, but up to breaches, you have attacks and compromises and policy violations. So by performing an enabling response to those attacks and compromises, we can prevent breaches. And so does anybody have kind of an idea of the difference between an attack and a compromise and a breach? So really what we'll get to in just a second, what's called the cyber kill chain. And I actually have a slide on that to kind of educate a little bit around what that is, but everybody's being attacked all the time. Your business right now, your personal email address, your Facebook account is being attacked. Literally while we're sitting here, I want to share this with you guys. This is just, this has nothing to do with me and being like in work. This is just a part of living life and being connected to the internet. I got this text message, which you should be able to read that. USPS, it's backwards, but I'll read it to you. I got a text message and I get these like once a day. It says USPS, the arranged delivery for the package, blah, 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 has been changed. Please confirm here. And there's a link. Right? Are you guys getting these too, or is it just me?
No, I'm getting it too.
I get about 10 a day.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I've got, Google, my Pixel is filtering them out and I am training it, but yeah, I get them.
Right. And like the phone calls, what's that?
Oh, I was going to say, I also, somebody sent me a message yesterday that Geico got breached and they're going after everybody's driver's license numbers.
I'm getting Google robocalls.
Yes, right. Are you getting the car insurance or the IRS taxes past due? Which ones are you getting?
Car insurance.
I got an IRS one just a day or two ago.
Oh yeah. So those are attacks. Those are cyber attacks. They're social engineering and or cyber attacks. Eventually it's going to say, hey, click on this, do this thing, take this action. So those are attacks that are constantly being propagated to everybody, whether it's in your personal life or your business. What you might not see in terms of attacks to your business or your organization is what's called an Nmap scan. And literally, you guys are all familiar with what a ping is, right? Yeah, ping is basically is its own protocol. It's its own kind of set of rules. It's its own little program, and basically ping goes from one place to another and bounces off of that and waits for a reply back. It's basically like sonar, echo, for computers. So that's just one program, one port, one protocol that it's in one IP at a time that it's bouncing off of. There's something called an Nmap scan. And an Nmap basically does like a ping, but it'll hit for one IP, it'll hit every single port, every single protocol. It'll scan the entire thing and it waits to hear what comes back. What is open? What ports are replying as open? What protocols are replying as open? And so these scans are happening on your public network all the time. And it's what we call reconnaissance. They're waiting to see what comes back as open as an opportunity for attack. If it comes back that RDP or remote desktop is open, then it knows that there's a vulnerability. There's a way in to that public IP through that port and protocol. So those are attacks. That's a definition of an attack, is basically that outreach, that attempt to identify a way to compromise. And so the compromise is the next thing. And it's in essence with my text message example, a compromise would be if I clicked on that, and by clicking on that, they gain access to my phone, or they gain access to my credential, they gain access to something, right? So going from the attack to this compromise where something they've gained access, then the last step of that is a breach. And so a working definition of a breach is that they do something bad. It's not quite full circle. If I click on it and they gain access, that's not their end goal. They don't really care about gaining access. What they care about is getting my username and password, getting my credit card numbers, my account numbers, my social security number. That is what we call a breach. That is the point in which something bad has happened. Really simple definition. So, understanding the difference between an attack, a compromise, and a breach, and understanding that these have to happen in succession means that we can prevent the bad things from happening if we can identify the attacks and the compromises that happen first. That's what we do. I do have one slide. Sorry, a little bit more about Proficio before we jump into more education stuff. We are, as you can see, I've got little bubbles here. We are headquartered in Carlsbad. Like I said, we're off of, we just moved to a new office on Salk Avenue, which is off of El Camino. It's kind of this weird thing. You go El Camino north, you go to the college stoplight, College Avenue, you make a U-turn, and then you come back and you make a right on Salk, right next door to basically TaylorMade and some of the other spots over here. But we also have offices in New York City, in North Carolina. We have a security operations center in Barcelona where we have analysts that are doing threat investigations 24/7. We have another office in London. We have another security operations center in Singapore, and we have another office in Australia. So we're pretty international, headquartered here. Started here. We actually started in Irvine and moved to Carlsbad is our third office in Carlsbad. So we love it here and have no intentions of leaving. I'm from San Diego originally, so I hope we don't leave. I don't want to go anywhere else. I'm kind of spoiled. Founded in 2010, we've been doing this for over a decade, which is really unique in cybersecurity. There's so many startups, so many pop-ups. The security market, the security landscape is constantly changing. So having done this for a very long time makes us an industry leader and really like a first mover in what we do. Leadership team of security industry veterans. I talked to you a little bit about where I came from Apple, from Solar Turbines, from Caterpillar. 3 security operations and SOC 2 Type 2 certified. Won't really get into that other than it's a stamp of approval from somebody else that says that our security operations centers are legitimate. You wouldn't believe, it's crazy how many competitors in our market say they do what they do, and it's like 3 guys in a garage with a laptop. Kind of terrifying. So I'll stop there and take a break for just a minute. because the next, how many slides do I have? I've got like 4 or 5 slides that are a little bit more educational, but in your guys' businesses, you know, I'm curious to hear what your security teams look like, your IT teams. You know, what is your guys' approach for doing IT and security? Is it in-house? Do you guys do a lot of outsourcing? You know, what is your approach to you know, this kind of cost center?
Well, I can start because this will be one sentence. We don't have any because we operate our entire business on the Salesforce platform. So essentially, all of the security is outsourced to their data centers.
Okay.
We at the chamber, we use third party that I trust to keep us safe from all the stuff you just went through. And you know, they seem to be doing a good job, but you know, it's scary stuff, to be honest.
I'll echo what Brett just said. We use a third party that I pay a lot of money for every month to keep us safe.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say that working independently, couple different things is I use a couple malware programs, including Hitman Pro, which is 3 times seems to have protected me from some sort of major attack, really. But then the other thing, Brian, I don't know if I mentioned, but I listened to Steve Gibson's Security Now, which is excellent. And at some point, I want you to actually comment on kind of the problem with the hardware, because I'm sure you probably know something about that. So anyway, I'm using software. I am not in my Windows 10 machine logged in as administrator. I'm logged in as a user, which,
Okay.
so that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, that definitely helps. And it's interesting to hear you guys' approach, because when it was, you know, if you back up 5-10 years ago, it was, you probably didn't start addressing IT and security issues unless you had like a guy, right? I have a guy, I've got my IT guy, you know, he does it. But between then and now, it's still as hard to tell, are they doing a good job, right? Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? You know, because not every, you guys, you know, if you are running a business, if you're a CEO and your business isn't security, you shouldn't know that. You should know all of your thought leadership and thought share should be in your business and your service and your products and what you do, not necessarily in cybersecurity. So we have some resources that may be helpful with that. We have what's called an MSP checklist, and it's just like 15 or 20 questions that you can ask of your outsourced provider. You know, are they doing these things? And that may or may not help. So, you know, something to think about. But we are seeing more and more businesses moving towards an outsourced model for pretty much everything. You know, I think a big part of that is cloud migration. You know, with companies continually moving to AWS, Azure, you know, Google, GCP. This idea of outsourcing data center. If you can outsource your data center, you can outsource anything. And so, more and more moving towards outsourced services. You know, is moving towards outsourced IT, moving towards outsourced cybersecurity. So that means it's great business for us. You know, adoption is continuing to increase for what we do, and I think it's the right move for most businesses. Back to education for just a little bit. You know, I'll talk through these next 4 slides. And what is my cutoff time? When do you need me to stop talking?
Oh, about 5 to 9.
Perfect. All right. So a couple things I wanted to share with you. I actually have a couple articles that I think are interesting before we jump into this. While you were asking about, you know, what's going on in technology, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Biden is putting together a $2.1 billion proposal to beef up the U.S. cybersecurity. Have you guys heard of this or seen this?
Yep, I have.
Okay. So, I mean, here's kind of where the funds are gonna break down into and how that money's gonna be propagated. But really, what's interesting is to me is this: it comes on the heels of the U.S. being compromised, right? So, being breached, I should say. So, attacked, compromised, all the way to breach. Two massive country-backed attacks, right? Number one was the Russian SolarWinds hack. Did you guys hear about that?
Yeah.
So what happens is SolarWinds is it's a tool that most mid to large enterprise organizations use, and it's a network basically up and down kind of monitor. So if you run a network operations center, you need to see if your servers and all of your devices, everything in your data centers is up and running. If something crashes, SolarWinds will identify that it's down, it'll notify you, and it'll do this thing. So that means that SolarWinds is connected to absolutely everything. It's got visibility to everything everywhere. And so what Russia did, it's really interesting how they did this, and it's horrible. They broke into SolarWinds, and with basically with a patch, because everything updates all the time, with one of the patches that SolarWinds went to release, Russia snuck some secret code into that update, and that code was basically a backdoor into every device that it went out to. So SolarWinds didn't know it was there. This comes back to like secure application development. SolarWinds didn't know it was there. They updated 10 bajillion devices like they would normally do, and that gave Russia backdoor access to every SolarWinds device that updated. Since SolarWinds touches everything in the network, it gave Russia access to every single device in every single business. That's why it was such a horrible, horrible thing. When it happened, the only thing that companies could do pretty much right out of the gate was just unplug the box, disconnect it from the network, and hopefully they didn't get in, in that time window where it was patched and available on the network. So that was a horrible one. That was a pretty bad one. We still don't know the full implications of how bad that was, because a lot of time when someone compromises, when they get in, they sit dormant, for a certain amount of time, and they'll wait, and then they'll breach, then they'll pull data out, then they'll do something bad. So another bad one was China attacking Microsoft's Exchange server platform. Just another horrible one, backed by a country. And so we're seeing the US being targeted by other countries and attacking and hacking. One of the things I want to point out is that these countries are actually catching up to the United States. There are more attacks sourced out of the United States than any other country, right? We talk about China hacking, Russia hacking. The US hacks more countries than anybody else by a lot. Most of the attacks come from the United States. Even from the United States, within the United States, we're hacking ourselves. And it's by a landslide. And so the actual first country to militarize like hacking was the United States. Have you guys ever heard of Stuxnet?
Yep.
We've got one. Okay. Have you guys ever heard of Edward Snowden?
Yeah.
Of course.
So Snowden basically was, one of the things that he was a whistleblower on is that Stuxnet was created by the US government. And what it was, Stuxnet was a massive, massive operation. It came down to one simple virus, but it identified like 7 or 8 zero-day attacks, meaning that nobody knew that these vulnerabilities existed in the software that they attacked. But basically what it was, Stuxnet was a virus that was deployed at an Iranian nuclear facility, and it actually blew up the facility. So you're talking about critical infrastructure that these Iranian centrifuges exploded, because of a virus that the US government created, deployed to attack Iran, and blew up these centrifuges. So that was 2005-ish. And so we were really the first ones to militarize cyber warfare. And so now it's coming back from Russia, from China, back against the US. You know, we're a little bit behind, coming full circle. This is why Biden is reinvesting in cybersecurity, because we need to be able to defend ourselves. And in my opinion, this will be the new front of warfare. You know, running around in the desert, you know, shooting people is going to be really secondary to the attacks that we've seen, like SolarWinds, like Exchange, like Stuxnet, like Russia's involvement in elections using social media platforms. That's all documented. We know that stuff has happened. So those types of cyber attacks are what we need to do a better job as a country to defend ourselves. One last thing that I'll touch on that, and one example of attack, compromise, breach in cyber warfare is, did you guys know that during the Super Bowl this last year in Tampa, Florida, that there was a cyber attack on critical infrastructure in Tampa? Did you guys hear about that? So what happened is, you know, Super Bowl's in Tampa, you've got, you know, tens of thousands of people that are flooding there, even in the midst of COVID. Somebody, and I don't remember exactly who it was, I think it was nation state backed, but somebody attacked the water system in Tampa, Florida, with everybody there. They attacked it, they compromised it, they got into the water system. And what they were trying to do from a breach perspective, from an actual doing harm perspective, is they were trying to dump poisonous, lethal amounts of chemicals into the water system in order to poison everybody in Tampa. True story. And so when we talk about preventing breaches by identifying attacks and compromises, somebody did their job that day and identified the compromise before it became a breach. They identified that someone was in the systems before they could dump all the poison into the water and do harm to people there. So let me just tell you guys right now, that is what is next in cyber security, in cyber defense, cyber warfare. People, you know, American citizens, we don't seem to really care. Just being honest, yeah, you got my username and password, I'll change it. I might not even change it, I don't even care. It's not a big deal. You got my credit card number, I'm FDIC insured, I don't have to worry about it. If there's fraudulent activity, it's paid for. Even our social security numbers were hacked, and Americans didn't really seem to care. Where people will start caring is when critical infrastructure is attacked, when water systems are poisoned or turned off for an entire city, when power plants are destroyed or turned off, when things that we depend on to live our regular lives are disrupted, or where people are physically hurt. That's when people are going to start caring. And I'm telling you that is what's next. That is what's coming. So it won't be long until something like that happens in the United States. All right, that's my scare tactic for the day. But
and it really worked too.
Yeah. Thank you,
I'm telling you
Sunshine.
guys, I know it's a tough job, but coming from Caterpillar and Solar Turbines, working in critical infrastructure, I can tell you guys it's a mess. Like, it's a mess. The critical infrastructure is operating off of Windows 98, you know, and protocols and systems that are so outdated, it's crazy. And they don't know how to operate. Like, there's IT and OT, operational technology, and those guys have no idea. Their job in operational technology is to make things work. Make sure the assembly line assembles, make sure that the conveyor belt conveys, not make sure that it doesn't get hacked. And so those systems are not built with cybersecurity in mind. They're trying to catch up, but they're so far behind, it's crazy. So
yeah, see, that is the problem. I used to be a CTO for a Triad and Escondido, and I couldn't sleep because as every day this type of threats when you hear, you don't know when it's going to hit you and all that. So it's tough position to be in.
So Brian, wouldn't you also agree that part of the problem is there's well, with convenience comes degradation of security, right? So there's a lot of young companies with a lot of younger people with not a whole lot of experience that are developing web-based and other applications, paying zero or next to nothing in terms of paying attention to security models. I see it a lot,
Absolutely. No, you're spot on, is that especially as a startup, right? Your job as a startup is to try and make payroll, right? Your job is to, what is the next deal that I need to get in order to make sure that everyone gets paid this month? Not, hey, I need to have a budget for cybersecurity. I need to have money to go out and make sure I don't get hacked. And so it's convenience, it's fund allocation, it's all those things. And so I think there are some technologies that are coming out that make things more convenient and improve your security posture. And I think that those are really going to be the leading edge of cybersecurity, the industry.
Brian, could you talk about what those might be? I'm just curious as to why are we so vulnerable with all the technology that we have available? And yet, I get your point about a lot of these like municipalities that are running on old systems and so forth, but why hasn't there been a like blockchain or something that becomes sort of the basis for a lot of these programs to operate, so they are either unhackable or, like Bitcoin, they pay the hackers, basically they pay the miners, they make it an industry. I don't know, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, just touching on blockchain for a minute. That is such an interesting technology that there are a lot of businesses that are looking at how to leverage that technology for cybersecurity purposes. And I think you're going to see more of that coming out in the next couple of years on how those types of technologies are leveraged for cybersecurity perspective. But to answer your question, it comes back to my project management days in this idea of a fool with a tool. I don't know if you guys have ever heard that, but, software providers continually push this idea that if you buy this software, if you buy this box and you plug it in, your hopes and dreams are going to come true, right? Like you got to drink the Kool-Aid, you got to put the Nikes on, and everything is going to be okay. I'm going to sell you comfort and assurance, and that's just not how it works. What it comes down to is security posture and security program. Your program is the overarching policies and technologies and process and procedure that you have to wrap it all together. People, process, and technology is kind of, I'm sure you guys have heard that before, but you really have to have all three of those things in cybersecurity. It's not just technology. It's not just plugging in a box. People will always be the most insecure part of every cybersecurity program. People do stupid things. To that point, Stuxnet, you know how Stuxnet got deployed to an Iranian centrifuge? They scattered USB thumb drives in the parking lot. And people were walking to their cars and they're like, oh, this is cool, USB thumb drive. They picked them up, they plugged them into their computers at work, and that's how the virus got deployed within an Iranian nuclear facility. So people are always going to be the weakest link in the chain. So education, testing, making sure that people don't do stupid things is going to be the biggest part. And then process. Yeah, jump in.
I was just going to say, stupid is what stupid does.
Yeah.
And my experience in technology is nothing is free. So I know there's a lot of free giveaways out there for antivirus or whatever else, but I've learned that there's nothing that is free.
Absolutely.
So what you're saying is the entire issue is a PEBCAC error. You know what PEBCAC stands for? The
Yeah.
problem exists between the chair and the keyboard.
Yep.
It's a
Yep.
PEBCAC error.
It's one of the problems. You know, it's definitely, it always comes back to people. Everything we do in business it's always about people. You know, so whether, you know, people are your greatest enablers or your greatest nightmares, you know, it always comes back to people. But some cool technologies, you know, and I think we're finding technologies that help to mitigate some of that. But one example is passwords, right? Is that a lot of people will use one. Hopefully you guys aren't using one password for all of your systems. And hopefully you don't have your password, you know, written on a sticky note on your screen. You know, passwords, there's also, you know, stronger password policies that help to defend, you know, you're not using password 123. Hopefully you're not using your company name in your password. Hopefully you're not using seasons in your password. You know, Proficio Spring 2021 ! Is a horrible password that would get hacked in about 2 seconds. So one of the technologies out there that might be interesting to you guys, check out LastPass. It's a password vault tool. And basically what it does, they've got a free version, which I use personally, and I love it. They have a corporate version that has some enhanced features that are beneficial to businesses. But basically it can create complex passwords that are randomized and you know, really hard to guess. And then it stores them in a vault that you can only access through multi-factor authentication, right? You can make it as complicated as you want to get into it. But basically it stores passwords so that when you visit a site, it automatically populates your username and password. Do not ever store your passwords in a browser. Those passwords are easy to access. Actually, you can download your entire username and password list in a CSV from any browser. So if someone gains access to your computer, they gain access to all of your passwords. So don't ever do that. The vault itself is always locked. And so like I said, in order to get into it, you need username, password, you know, multi-factor authentication with your phone or biometrics or whatever else. So it's a much better deal. Yeah. And we, you know, that's a tool that we use and we feel works pretty well.
I've been using LastPass, I think, for 13 years. Something
awesome. Pretty
much when they started. So yeah, so everything you said is true and great. Plus it works on mobile devices or anything else. Yep. The other thing I really like, because I do work with other people, is I'm actually able, like in the case of my bookkeeper, be able to, you know, basically securely send them the credentials for whatever we might be working on together, whether that's an audio editor that needs access to something or whatever. So it makes it really simple and secure. And yeah.
Perfect. We've got, I'm talking long, which is good because it takes all the sales out of this, but I do want to get through some of these slides because I think this stuff is interesting. It might not be interesting to you, but I at least have slides to give you something to look at. This one that's been on the screen for about 15 minutes, security by the numbers. So we talk about in cybersecurity, we have this idea of attack and defense. It's within what we call the MITRE framework. It's its own kind of philosophy of cybersecurity, but breakout time is the initial intrusion. So attack, compromise, this is the initial compromise to lateral propagation. That means that they get into one system, their goal is to get into multiple systems that are like horizontally equal. So if I get into a desktop, I want to get into another desktop. If I get into a server, I want to get into another server. But they're moving towards their adversary objective. And what the adversary objective is either a storage, like a storage server that houses your engineering drawings, or they're trying to get to Active Directory, which is like the keys to the kingdom. You get to Active Directory admin, you get whatever you want, right? So they're trying to move towards this objective. So it's a time that it takes from that first compromise and then the time it takes to get to what it is they're trying to get to. So if it's an e-crime, meaning it's just a guy at his laptop that's, you know, a computer wizard, it's about 9 hours. If it's Russia, if it's China, if it's a nation state, it's 4 hours. So it's less than half if it's a militarized organization. We use the 15-30-60 rule from a defender side of this, which means within 15 minutes, we need to detect that threat event in a SIM. SIM is a security information event management tool. It's a big data analytics platform that we use to process all of the security events across your entire organizations. We collect data from firewalls, from servers, from antivirus, from all these different things. We bring them into one big data platform called a SIM, and we process events from one device to another. So we bring that data in from our clients. Within 15 minutes, we need an event to trigger from that platform. Within 30 minutes, we need to do an analyst investigation. That's our 3 security operations centers that are going to process it. They're going to do an investigation. Is this legitimate, something legitimately bad, or is this a false positive? So in 30 minutes, we need to make that decision. And then within 60 minutes, we're going to escalate that to the client. And we need to get a response from them within an hour to say, hey, we're telling you something as bad is happening within your environment, and I need you to acknowledge this. I don't care if it's Sunday at 3 a.m. I'm going to call you. I'm going to get an Uber. I'm going to find you, and I'm going to let you know that you guys are that you have a compromise within your system. And it's 5 till. I got through one slide, guys. I want to be sensitive of your time.
Well, so actually, let's, with the remaining few minutes here, Brian, just what is the one thing, or 3 things, but let's just say one thing that people at the Carlsbad Chamber of Commerce need to know and understand? A lot of these people are like me, where I'm just working independently from my own computer at home. What is the one thing people need to do besides pick up the phone and call you? I know that's what you want. So.
I would say actually the one thing, if you're a smaller organization, to be honest, my services probably don't fit. We cater to medium to large enterprise organizations and we do have an SMB service, but the SMB services typically start for organizations that have, at least a couple firewalls, some infrastructure in the cloud or on-prem. It might not be a good fit for you guys. What I would say is, we talked about technology not being the end all, that it is people, process, and technology. I would say probably the first thing that I would do if I was in your guys' shoes, I would get a consultant for like a vCISO. It's a virtual CISO. It's basically someone that can come at the highest level and give you a security program and point you in the right direction. You can take it as 5 hours a month. You can consume as much as you need, but we talked about, are my IT guys doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are my security guys doing it? The vCISO is the guy that's going to tell you yes or no. That would be my first takeaway, my first suggestion. Hire a vCISO. We don't do that. I have partners that do that. I can point you in the right direction for that. But that is kind of the checkbox. That is what will let you sleep at night, knowing that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Okay, what does that acronym stand for?
CISO is a Chief Information Security Officer.
Great.
And V is just virtual. And so it's basically a high-level consultant that's going to make sure that your security program and posture is in place and that you're doing what you should be doing.
Are they typically certified?
Yeah.
Good. So yeah, we'll talk later. We might want to add that to what we're doing to let people know.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, thank you very, very, very much. This is, it's scary. What can I say? It was really good though.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks,
Good job,
Brian.
man.